What's up, everybody? Hello, how's it going? Welcome back to the vlog. Haven't done one of these style videos in a while, but I figured it was time because it's actually a very exciting day here in the studio because recently one of my clients approved the designs of their new website. So that means now the design phase of this website project is complete, and now it's time to actually start building in Webflow. So in this video, I want to take you behind the scenes and show you my Figma to Webflow workflow. This has been refined over probably 10 to 20 website builds, and I'm just going to show you how I essentially take the design we have built in Figma and then move it over to Webflow in a very efficient manner so that we can build the website as fast as possible while of course ensuring a high quality outcome and not cutting any corners. You can even preview what the design looks like a bit right there. But first I want to talk about why do we actually build in Figma in the first place as opposed to just doing that in Webflow. So first and foremost, designing in Figma is critical because it allows you to quickly explore several different design directions and experiment with different layouts. You don't want to be doing that in Webflow because that's just going to create a lot of technical debt in terms of unused classes that are going to slow down the website. It's also not very time efficient. So if we were thinking about designing the same section in Figma versus developing that in Webflow, it's always going to take longer in Webflow. It's just much more faster and efficient to design in Figma first. And then of course you can always send those designs over to your client right in the browser. They don't need to download any software. They can leave their comments directly in the Figma canvas. And then that way you can take their feedback and iterate on it for the next design round or revisions. So while it might seem counterintuitive in some ways where you're spending time in one platform designing the website and then you need to bring it into another platform to develop the website, in the long run, it is much faster. The only time I would ever design in Webflow first is if I was working on my own website. But even then, oftentimes, I'm still using Figma before going into Webflow because, again, it's faster. All right, so in a second, we will jump into a screen share. I'm going to walk you through some of the key areas we need to focus on to ensure a smooth, efficient development process. So I'm going to show you how I kick off the transition from Figma to Webflow and also just share a bunch of resources I use to make this development process as smooth and efficient as possible. Now, first though, I want to address what you actually need in place at this point of the project in order to actually ensure a smooth development process. Number one, you're going to need UX wireframes already designed in Figma. So that is going to be for all of the different pages on the website. And then from that, you're going to have the final copy already listed out on the website, or at least copy that's 95% finalized. This is very important because if you don't have the content and copy finalized, then it's going to come back to haunt you right before launch. And then basically the website is almost certainly going to be put up on hold right before you're trying to go live, which is not going to be fun. So just, you want to have that done ahead of time. Then you're also going to want to have the UI wireframes mocked up for the key pages of the website. Now in this particular project, it's a very small 5-page website, so I actually did in this case, but that's only because the client actually ended up choosing the higher scoped, higher priced project option. But what I would recommend here is, say if you have a 10-page website you're developing, I would say you only need to actually mock up 3 to 4 pages fully in a UI design mode where people can preview the exact website as it's going to be once it's live on the internet. And then from there, you can use that as a style guide to apply to the rest of the pages throughout the website. The client can actually leave their feedback in Webflow later on, and then you can iterate on that in the development process. But that's one of my top hacks I found over the years of doing this. I used to work for an agency where we would mock up every single page in that UI design fashion in Figma. And while it did help out in development later on, honestly, it was just a waste of time and the client was billed unnecessarily for it and just made the website project way longer than it needed to be. So that is what I recommend you have. And then of course, lastly, most importantly, even maybe you need client approvals. So I never move into Webflow unless the client has given me written confirmation that the design of the website is approved. Otherwise, you're really risking taking 1 step forward and 7 steps back if you were to try and get ahead of things. So that's really what you need to ensure a smooth development process before you even get started. Now let me show you some of the resources I use to kick off a website development project in Webflow. This way, if you're a fellow Webflow developer, you can perhaps steal some tips and tricks to implement into your own workflow. And if you're a marketing director or a CEO looking to build a new website in Webflow, this is what you're going to want to make sure your Webflow developer is using, because quite honestly, this is the streamlined professional process that you need in place if the project is actually going to get developed in time, on budget, and ultimately launch in an effective manner. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Bailey Canning. I'm an independent full stack marketing strategist living here in Denver, Colorado, working with my clients primarily on branding, web design and development, and ongoing marketing retainer projects. First and foremost, you don't want to just start with a blank Webflow project. What you want to do is you want to use the Relume style guide, which is exactly what I have done to design the website wireframes you can see here. And this is all built with the Relume library kit. So basically we have an entire style guide that we're going to work on moving over. And then we have all these components as well, if we were to zoom in. And basically this is going to make it very simple to just copy and paste all of these components over into Webflow once it comes time to actually design and build. And then also they're automatically going to be responsive, so it's just going to save so much time. So Relume has a Figma kit, and then it also has a Webflow kit, and that is the clonable we're going to start. So I've already cloned this in my Webflow dashboard, so you can see the site right here we are working in. Then the next thing I wanted to talk about here is going to be this Webflow build checklist. This is from the Flow Gurus checklist, which normally you have to buy. I'll link it in the description. I honestly don't even know how much it costs because I got it for free as part of the Webflow masterclass from Flux Academy, which I bought years ago and they continue to always update it regularly. Why I like this checklist is that basically it has all the key aspects of the project. And honestly, even if you don't build in Webflow, you could buy this and then customize it to your needs. I have it in my Notion here, and you can see that it's basically broken up by the main sub phases within the development phase, if you will. And I've already been going through it this morning, so we have different statuses. So this way it's very easy at a high level glance that you can see what's in progress. I could even share this if I wanted to with my clients so they could have a more in-depth rundown on the development progress. Hopefully you can see the value though of having all of this built out. It's very in-depth. Honestly, it's probably a bit more in-depth than it needs to be, but that's a good thing. And the benefit here, again, is that this way you ensure nothing falls through the cracks, and it just relieves a lot of the mental overhead. For example, there's that famous book, Checklist Manifesto, essentially where they talk about the value of these SOP type checklists, and the book references famously the fact that pilots have a very exhaustive checklist that they use for flights, same thing with doctors, for example, and then over time, this has cut down the mistakes in those industries dramatically. So we want to have the same thing here. This way, nothing falls through the cracks, and we're able to guarantee design outcomes for our clients, essentially, because we're just running through every single development project through this SOP-like checklist. All right, so it's 10 a.m. now. I've been yapping enough. It's time to finally get into Webflow and start building out this website. It's Tuesday right now. I'm trying to send it to the client by the end of the week, where basically the development will be completed, and then the final things from there are going to be the CMS collections we need to set up, like the forms we need to set up, and like kind of those miscellaneous functionality type deliverables from the project. But I'm trying to get the design fully developed this week. So without further ado, let's make some coffee, let's dive into Webflow and hit a productive deep work session. For anyone out there looking to up their coffee game, especially if they work from home, highly recommend this AeroPress. Way better than a traditional like plug in the wall type coffee machine maker, which just burns the coffee. This, you can get very good coffee. This thing's like $40. You can travel with it. All you need is a kettle, and it only takes about 2.5 minutes. And then you're basically good to go with a very solid cup of coffee. Highly recommend. I bought it on Amazon years ago, and it's basically indestructible. based on that time-lapse screen share there, you probably got a sense of a couple of the key tasks that I was handling to get this Webflow project set up. But in no particular order, I want to run through them. So number one is going to be the asset prep. Mainly that is going to be bulk exporting and uploading the images from Figma into Webflow. That way you already have them in the media library and you don't need to worry about doing them one by one. It's much more efficient, although quite honestly, it is a bit of a pain. There's that Figma to Webflow plugin, which we'll talk about in a second. Honestly, I find that it's not super helpful other than syncing the variables because when you copy and paste sections in, it still doesn't map 100%. But if they could just add an auto sync to import the image assets and all the other icons and SVG type files directly into the Webflow project, that would be such a time saver because honestly, the most boring admin task is just to upload those Figma files. Next, after that, you're going to want to upload the fonts. So this is only if you're using custom fonts. However, I think that's one of the best ways to add extra design value to the sites that I'm working on. So I almost always use custom fonts, especially in the headings. So that is what I was doing there. I upload the fonts. Then that brings me to my next point, which is going to be to set up the style guide. So that's going to be things like all the headings, all of the colors, the spacing, the fonts, etc. And Relume makes it super easy. They have a very in-depth style guide. And so I'll just go through that after I already upload the fonts as well as syncing the variables. I'll just set up all the styles once, and then I'll also add some variables as well based on how I know the design of the site is going to lay out. And that just makes it very easy to get everything done all at once, and then I don't need to worry about doing it one by one later on. The Figma to Webflow plugin has a lot of promise. If they could ever get it to one day where you can automatically import the designs from Figma into Webflow and the classes match perfectly and the layout and structure was built properly with no extra divs or tags in the HTML code, that would be great. But honestly, I really just don't think it's there yet, unfortunately. So I don't know, we'll see. I am interested in Framer for that reason. That is something I want to get to over the holidays probably coming up, is learning more about that, because that might be something I look to implement in my workflow for 2026. But there's pros and cons to learning a new platform and doing some projects only on one platform. So for right now, I am all in on Webflow. And my last point here, or my last 2 points, are going to be that there is the fact that once you actually set up the style guide, you've brought in the assets, and you've got everything else handled in terms of those admin development prep tasks, then you can move into actually copying and pasting those Relume components into Webflow. So you can see I built out the entire homepage essentially in 20 minutes maybe, and it's already mobile responsive. However, I still do need to add in the copy, which I was copying and pasting over as well. And then I'm going to need to do the same process later today for the rest of the pages. Thankfully, it's only like a 4 to 5 page website. It's pretty small. This was as part of a bigger branding project I was doing as well, though. So it really wasn't taking very long to import all that in. But Relume saves me honestly probably 10 to 20 hours of development time. I've done videos in the past all about how I'm using the Relume library. So if you're interested at all, I will link those below if you want to go a bit more in depth. Keep it posted to the channel because I'm going to be creating more, hopefully more interesting type vlogs for this project coming up because we need to get it launched soon. Then lastly, I do currently have one project slot open for a Webflow web design project. So if you're considering a project, whether it is this quarter and you're looking to get it done before the end of the year, or perhaps you're in the early stages of planning out a new website build for Q1 2026 coming up very shortly here, then definitely feel free to check out the link in the description. There's a 5-minute interactive video form to simply collect some details about your project. And if you're a good fit, you'll be able to book time directly on my calendar to discuss your project. So that's all for me in this one. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.